Hello again, everybody. Welcome into Gamecock Central Radio. Emerson Phillips joined by Wes Mitchell. And Wes, Happy New Year to you. And a big night for everybody listening today as we move into 2016, out with the old, in with the new. And I wanted to get your thoughts on what might be some New Year's resolutions for Gamecock football as we move into this new year.
We want to wish everybody out there Happy New Year. 2016 is upon us. It's come pretty fast. And, it's been a year of change for South Carolina. Especially on the football side. So, I think New Year's resolutions, you are kind of seeing some of these things already come to pass. I think for South Carolina and South Carolina football, it has to start with recruiting. And, I think what you saw there, as Will Muschamp took over, you saw, I think, almost a completely revamped recruiting style compared to what we saw before. We've seen a completely revamped coaching staff as far as bringing in guys who are known as competitive, hardcore recruiters. Brian McClendon, the Georgia interim coach who has served both at times as their running backs coach and wide receivers coach, a guy that just absolutely gets after it. And Travaris Robinson, the defense coordinator, a guy that absolutely gets after it. Two of the best recruiters, I think, in the entire country. So you look at that, I think, for South Carolina, you have to have a New Year's resolution of continuing to add recruiting staff that work behind the scenes. I think a guy like Robbie Lyles, who's going to stay on with South Carolina, does an outstanding job himself. If you talk to high school coaches, talk to prospects, talk to their parents, everybody loves Robbie Lyles. But when you're going up against programs that have, 10 times the staff that South Carolina had, I think you have to continue to add staff and revamp the recruiting operations behind the scenes. So I think that's a New Year's resolution for South Carolina going forward. I think a New Year's resolution every single year should be in the top 20, maybe even top 15 as far as recruiting classes go in the country. I think this year that's going to be difficult to do. I think moving forward, that's something South Carolina can be every single year, top 20, top 15. Recruiting class every single season. And then I think, though, possibly the biggest South Carolina football-related New Year's resolution has to be to fix the Gamecocks defense. And, with what we've seen the last two seasons, look traditionally at South Carolina, Emerson. Even their bad teams in the past, South Carolina has generally had pretty good defense. And for a long stretch of time until the last two seasons. So, I think there's probably nobody better, though, to fix a defense than Will Muschamp. And I think with that will come more competitive games. And if you're a South Carolina fan, you're hoping that means more wins, obviously. But, those, I think, are the clear New Year's resolutions for South Carolina Gamecocks football program.
Yeah, talking New Year's resolutions here for Gamecock football, improve recruiting, improve the defense, any number of ways that you could go with this one, Wes. How about personal New Year's resolutions for you? Do you have any?
Oh, man. Let's see. I'm not a big New Year's resolution person. I will say, though, that and I'm gonna go ahead and let the cat out of the bag here. I think we're talking, and maybe our listeners can post on the board if you're interested in this. We're talking about doing a Gamecock Central Fitness Challenge, where rather than have a personal New Year's resolution, we can all maybe do this together and pick some way to be healthy for people. Because I'm actually going the month of January. I'm going no sweets. I'm drinking pretty much water, no fried food.
Wow.
No adult beverages. Not that I would be partaking in those anyway. But so maybe as a group we can come up with a kind of a good way to start January health-wise. I don't know if everyone would be down to go completely that far. I did it last year, and I did it last year, and that's the best I felt in probably since I was like 17 years old. Honestly, it's the best I felt physically. So we may have to do a Gamecock Central family group fitness challenge. What do you think, Emerson? Are you in
I'm out. Fitness challenge, no. Count me out for that one. Best of luck to you and everybody that will participate. I'm going to sit this one out, Wes. And like you, I'm not a big New Year's resolution person either. I don't think you should wait until the first of the year or the start of a new year to have some resolve. Wes, we got a big couple of days of college football bowl games here. I wanted to talk about the slate for both New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Let's start with the New Year's Eve games. We got 3 games on tap, Wes, and we'll start it off with the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl in Atlanta. Noon kickoff New Year's Eve for Florida State and Houston, and that'll be followed by the 2 playoff games, the national semifinals of the college football playoff. Oklahoma and Clemson playing at the Orange Bowl at 4 o'clock, and Michigan State, Alabama at the Cotton Bowl in Arlington, Texas for an 8 o'clock kick. Talk about all 3 games.
Well, I think, first of all, I'm excited about all 3 of these football games. I hope to be able to sit down and watch them all. Houston, Tom Herman, I know South Carolina fans wanted him to be their next coach, but, I think you look at him, one of the best up-and-coming coaches in the country, and I think I always look at these games, I say, which team wants to be there more? And can that team match up, at least come close to matching up from a physical talent standpoint? And I think in some ways Houston can. They have 2 really good quarterbacks. They've got a kid in Avery, number 10, the wide receiver, really, really good dynamic player. And they have their own version of a Pharaoh in the backfield as well at running back. And I actually think Houston is going to knock off Florida State in this game and start off the New Year's Eve, New Year's Day bowls with a splash for us. So I think Houston wins that game. And as much as probably the fans don't want to hear it, I actually think it's going to be very hard for Oklahoma to beat Clemson. I do think that's going to be a very good game. I think Oklahoma has played, probably at times has played like the best team in the country, but at the same time, just looking at Clemson, even though that was a close game in South Carolina, they've got so many weapons across the board. This is a game though that could be an absolute shootout if you really look at it on paper.
Yeah.
I think for just the average fan who doesn't care who wins, it's going to be a fun game. It's going to be a very fun game, I think. So, look, we all know, though, a lot of times, how many times are we expecting a shootout, and then all of a sudden, sometimes a defensive battle breaks out of nowhere. And I think everyone's expecting, on paper, if you're a fan of offense and new-aged offense, the spread, then this first game is for you. And if you're a little bit more old school, then this second game, Michigan State and Alabama, then that one's right up your alley. That's the one you're excited for. I'm excited for both of them, but the thing with that game is, D'Antonio versus Saban, two of the absolute best as far as building programs. But it's just very, very hard for me to go against the Alabama Crimson Tide. You can't go wrong picking Alabama. Not that they always win, but over a period of time, if Nick Saban is the coach at Alabama, you've done pretty well by picking them. So I have a hard time picking against Alabama in that game.
Kind of interesting, the contrasting matchups that we've got here. Oklahoma and Clemson in one semifinal, the 2 offensive-minded teams, Michigan State and Bama, more defensive-minded teams. So we're going to have one offensive team against a defensive team in a national championship game coming up on January 12th. Wes, who you got winning it all?
Oh, man. I think, first of all, the committee and this year was a little bit easier than last year, I think. The committee did get it right. So, I like all 4 teams. I don't think you can count any of the 4 teams out. In other words, none of those 4 winning would surprise me. But at the end of the day, I think Alabama is the best team in the country. So I'm going to go with the Alabama Crimson Tide to win it all.
All right, we're going to find out starting New Year's Eve, 4 o'clock, Clemson and Oklahoma, and then Bama, Michigan State at 8 o'clock. And then 5 games on tap New Year's Day, a tremendous New Year's Day slate. Wes starts with the Outback Bowl, Northwestern and Tennessee at noon, the Citrus Bowl, Michigan and Florida at 1, the Fiesta Bowl, Notre Dame and Ohio State also at 1, The Rose Bowl, 5 o'clock kick for Stanford and Iowa, and the Sugar Bowl, always the nightcap on New Year's Day, Oklahoma State and Ole Miss. Talk about a couple of your favorite games here.
You know what? My favorite game, I'll give you my absolute favorite game out of those, is in the Oklahoma State Ole Miss, actually. I think Notre Dame Ohio State is very intriguing, especially from a name brand standpoint. Two of your all-time best traditional name blue blood programs. So that's pretty, exciting, I think, for a lot of old school college football fans. Me personally, I'm actually looking forward to Oklahoma State Ole Miss. I like the talent that Ole Miss has been able to bring in there, and I like watching Oklahoma State. I like the way Gundy puts together an offense, and I think that's actually a very intriguing, possibly late fourth quarter type game. So you've got some very, very intriguing games. I think Michigan and Florida is intriguing, but not necessarily as entertaining as those other two games I talked about, because ever since Florida lost Will Grier, it's been tough sledding, obviously, for their offense.
Tremendous slate of bowl games today and tomorrow. And, Wes, we hope that next year the Gamecocks will be back in the fold on these New Year's Day bowl games. We hate that South Carolina's not there this year, but with the new coaching staff coming in, infusing some excitement into the program and really getting to work on the recruiting trail, there is reason to believe that the Gamecocks will be back in the bowl picture for New Year's Day very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the staff is going to have the fan base excited, and I think they're going to bring in some talent. And the interesting thing is the way the next 5 or so weeks go, I think directly can impact how quickly South Carolina gets back in this bowl mix, because they need difference makers. You can recruit guys, you have to develop, and they're going to have to take some of those guys late. That's inevitable. You don't get to start this late and get all blue chip guys, but stilling, a Kevin Ridley, the receiver from Miami, his brother plays for Alabama, stilling like a Sam Bruce, stilling a guy that no one expected them to get, that's a difference maker on the field. I don't think there'd be anything bigger for the progress of the rebuild of this program, both on the field and from a perception standpoint. South Carolina, the best thing that can happen to South Carolina down the stretch would be to steal that one guy that makes anybody who follows recruiting nationally say, wow, did South Carolina really just get that guy? And take notice. I think that's the biggest thing for South Carolina going forward.
All right, plenty more Gamecock football information to come here on Gamecock Central and Gamecock Central Radio as we approach National Signing Day coming up in early February. Wes, thanks for your time today. Thanks for the update, and happy holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays, happy New Year, and we will talk to everyone out there again soon.
All right, for Wes Mitchell, I'm Emerson Phillips. Thanks for joining us on Gamecock Central Radio, and happy New Year to you.